All right. Looks like I am live on Facebook, live on Twitch, and live on YouTube as well. It's 11:22. I spent the past half hour trying to get my streaming to work because it's being surprise, surprise. My computer is being a piece of you know what. So anyway, it's a little late. I have an early morning, so we're not going to read as much as you. Shay, glad you're watching on Facebook. Anyway, tonight we are reading. You feel my? I'm sure you do. Anyway, tonight we are reading some Russian fairy tale. Well, We're actually going to read just one Russian fairy tale, I think, tonight, unless it's a short one. I'll look to see how long the is. Oh yes, it's a decent length. So we're only going to read the. Oh wow, yes, we're only going to read the one. We're going to read one Russian fairy tale tonight, and we're going to read one original piece as well. So that's what we will do tonight, and then I will see you again tomorrow night for some more amazing stories. Anyway, shall we get started? Before we do, a quick message. If you have not already, join the Facebook group Storytime with an exclamation point at the end. If you have not already, like and subscribe to my YouTube page. If you're watching this video right now on YouTube, hit like right now, press it now. There's no more time in the world for you to do this. Well, I suppose there's some more time, but it's really urgent you do this now, so go ahead and hit like, please. And if you have not before, hit subscribe. That way... Tiramisu again. Yes, that's right. It's showing tiramisu again. I didn't say anything about tiramisu in this, but oh well. But anyway, like and subscribe. YouTube, the channel is bpicorny1. And if you're watching on Twitch, and hello Heather, hello Nick, I see both of you here. Thank you for being here tonight. It's Russian Fairy Tales. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitch, the handle is Brett Doesn't Game, all one word. I see Mr. Green 619 has joined us in the chat. You get a special hello. And I will put it in all caps as well. Special hello. Boom. You got that special hello, Mr. Green 619 rather, not 16. Sorry if that offended you. Anyway, hello to you. Hello to Heather and Nick. Hello to Shay. Hello to Gloria Bradford Bickhart. Welcome everyone who's watching. Thank you for being here. And I suppose we should get started. More people than I was expecting have already shown up, and it's 11:30. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So, shall we get to it? Like I said, tonight, one Russian fairy tale, followed by one original tale of my own. So here we are. Oh, shoot. I don't have a drink. I suppose it's whiskey tonight. Just whiskey. And Mr. Green 619, as for your comment about it being tiramisu again, please do expand on that, because if it's saying this video is titled something like tiramisu, then I'd want to know, because I'm not eating any tiramisu tonight, and I didn't make more, so there's that. Anyway, shall we move on? Shall we move forward to the first story? I think we shall. So this is a Russian fairy tale called The Wise. On to the story. Once upon a time, there was a peasant who had two sons. The younger one traveled, the elder stayed at home. Okay, it's just one peasant with two sons. There we go. The other night, oh yes, the other night I was. Oh, that makes so much sense, Heather. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, Mr. 619. No, it's not because of tiramisu that I was late tonight. No. And hello, Jerry Wright. Thank you for joining in on Facebook. No, it's not because of tiramisu that I'm late tonight. It's other reasons. I will not expand because I must get on with the show. Again, surprising that it's, two sons and just one peasant, not an old man and an old woman with three sons. Exactly, Shay. Only two sons this time. So let's see where this story goes. Once upon a time, there was a peasant who had two sons. The younger one traveled, the elder stayed at home. he bequeathed all that he had to his eldest son and left nothing to the younger one, thinking that a brother would surely not wrong a brother. The eldest son buried his father and kept all the inheritance. The second son returned and wept bitterly on finding his father dead. His brother said to him, "Our father left everything to me alone, daughter." What a douche. And so the elder brother took all of the inheritance, grew rich, and began to trade in precious goods, while the younger brother was a retail merchant. The poor man was afraid and said to them, "No." Then two of his neighbors, "Connection unstable? What are you talking about?" Okay, back to it. Then two of his neighbors determined to give him money by a stratagem. One day, when the poor man went to get wood, one of these neighbors contrived to meet him by taking a detour and said, "I had just left the house for a distant voyage when someone who owed me 300 rubles met me on the way and paid me. Now I don't know where to put the money. I don't want to return home, so please take it, keep it for me, or rather trade with it. I won't be back for a long time. You can pay me later, little by little." The poor man took the money, brought it home, and was afraid that he might lose it or that his wife might find it and spend it instead of his own money. Yes, sorry, Nicholas, I think it's on my end. I really need to see about my internet, what's going on with that. It's been slow lately, very slow. And also, my annoying computer is doing some stupid things. So, yeah. Back to it. He thought and finally hid in a wooden tub full of ashes. Hid it in a wooden tub full of ashes. While he was away, traders who bought ashes and paid for them in goods came to his house. His wife exchanged the tub of ashes for some goods. I didn't realize that there are people who trade for ashes. Anyway, when the husband returned and saw that the tub was gone, he asked his wife, "Where are the ashes?" His wife answered, "I sold them to the traders." He was frightened and very unhappy, but kept silent nonetheless. His wife saw that he was sad. She began to press him to tell her what misfortune had befallen him and why he was so distressed. He confessed that some money that did not belong to him was hidden in the ashes. His wife grew angry, shouted, and wept. "Why didn't you trust me?" she said. "I would have hidden the money in a better place." Again, the peasant went for wood to sell at the market so that he might buy bread. Another of his neighbors overtook him, told him the same thing as the first, and gave him 500 rubles to keep for him. The poor man refused to take them, but the neighbor forced the money into his hands and rode away. The money was in bills. Our poor old man thought about where to put it, and finally stuck it under the lining of his cap. He came to the forest, hung his cap on a pine tree, and began to chop wood. As ill luck would have it, a raven snatched his cap with the money in it and flew away. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. The peasant was sad, but resigned himself to his fate. He lived as before, traded in wood and other cheap things, and somehow struggled along. The neighbors waited for some time and then realized that the poor man's lot had not improved. They asked him, "Are you unsuccessful in your trade, brother, or are you afraid that you will lose our money? If so, better give it back to us." The poor man wept and told them how he had lost the money. His neighbors did not believe him and brought the matter to court. "How shall I decide this case?" thought the judge. "This peasant is a peaceful man, but penniless. He has nothing that can be taken from him, and if I send him to prison, his family will die of starvation. And hello, Crew Kinnard, thank you for joining in." The judge was sitting by the window, sunk in meditation, where he was distracted by some boys playing in the street. One of the boys, an alert little fellow, said, "I will be the burgomaster," on a stone. Another boy approached him, bowed to him, and said, "I loaned money to this peasant, and he has not paid me back. I have come to your honor to complain about him." "Did you borrow money from him?" the burgomaster asked the defendant. "I did." "Then why didn't you pay it back?" "I have nothing to pay it with, little father." "Listen, plaintiff, since the defendant does not deny having borrowed money from you, and since he cannot pay, extend the term of the debt for 5 or 6 years. By that time he may come into money, and if so, he will repay the debt with interest. Do you agree?" The two boys bowed to the burgomaster and said, "Thank you, little father, we agree." I didn't know little boys played such games. Moving on. The judge heard all this, was overjoyed, and said, "This boy has enlightened me. I will tell my plaintiffs to give the poor man an extension of time." Upon his advice, the rich neighbors agreed to watch for 2 or 3 years, in the hope that by then the peasant would have bettered his lot. The poor man again went to the forest for wood and chopped half a cartful, and then night came. He remained in the woods, intending to return home in the morning with a full cart. He wondered where he would spend the night. The forest was deserted and teeming with wild beasts. If he lay beside his horse, it might devour him. He went deeper into the thicket and climbed into a big pine tree. At night, 7 robbers came there and said, "Open, open, little gate." At once a little gate leading underground opened. The robbers carried in their loot, and when all was hidden, said, "Close, close, little gate." The gate closed, and the robbers left to get more loot. The peasant saw all this. When everything around him was quiet, he climbed down from the tree, thinking, "Screw you, Facebook! Screw you!" Sorry, everyone. It's connectivity issues. They are being a BITCH. Anyway, moving on. When everything around him was quiet, he climbed down from the tree, thinking, "Let me try. Maybe the gate will open for me too." He had no sooner said, "Open, open, little gate," than it opened. He entered the cave and saw piles of gold, silver, and all sorts of other valuable objects lying around. The poor man rejoiced, and at daybreak began to drag away the bags of money. He threw away his wood, loaded his cart with silver and gold, and hastened home. Oh, but what about that good wood? And hello, Mum, I see you have joined as well. What about that good wood, everybody? Why would you waste good wood? That's what she said. Sorry, I'm ashamed of myself. Moving on. His wife went out to meet him. "Oh, little husband, I nearly died of grief, worrying about you. I thought that a tree had crushed you, or that wild beasts had devoured you." But the peasant said happily, "Cheer up, my wife. God gave me luck. I found a treasure. Help me to carry these bags." After the bags were carried in, he went to his rich brother, told him about everything, and invited him to accompany him on another trip to the cave. The brother agreed. They went together to the woods, found the pine tree, and cried, "Open, open, little gate," and the little gate opened. They set about dragging out bags of money. The poor brother filled his cart and was satisfied, but the rich brother could not tear himself away. "Well, little brother," he said, "you go home. I shall soon follow you." "Very well, but don't forget to say, 'Close, close, little gate.'" "I won't." The poor man left, but the rich man could not get enough of the treasure. It was impossible to take everything at once, and to leave it was a pity. Night overtook him in the same place. The robbers arrived, found him in the cave, and cut off his head. "Oh, poor bastard brother." Sorry for the language. Anyway, they removed their bags from the cart, put the slain man in it, lashed the horse, and set it loose. The horse ran out of the woods and brought him home. The robber chieftain chided the robber who had killed the rich brother. "Why did you kill him prematurely? You should have asked him first where he lived, for much of our goods is missing, and probably he stole it. How can we find it now?" The chieftain's assistant said, "Let the man who killed him look for him." Shortly afterward, the murderer began to scout for the gold. He came to the poor man's little store. He bought a thing or two, noticed that the storekeeper was dejected, and asked him, "Why are you so sad?" He answered, "I had an elder brother, but misfortune came. Someone killed him. The day before yesterday, his horse brought him home with his head cut off, and he was buried today." The robber saw that he was on the right track, and pretending to be very sorry, began to investigate. Upon learning that the slain man had left a widow, he asked, "Has his widow at least a roof over her head?" "Oh, yes, she has a big house." "Where? Show it to me." The peasant showed him his brother's house. The robber took some red paint and marked the door. "What are you doing that for?" the peasant asked him. He answered, "I want to help the widow, and I have made that sign in order to find her house more easily." Brother, my sister-in-law needs no help. Thank God she has enough of everything. And where do you live?" "Here is my hut." The robber made the same sign on his door too. "And what is that for?" "I like you very much," said the robber. "The next time I come here, I will stop at your house to spend the night. Believe me, brother, you will profit by it." The robber returned to his band, related all that had happened, and they decided to rob and kill everyone in the houses of the two brothers and recover their gold. Oh, my dear listeners, how unfortunate for those brothers and their wives. How scary of a situation this is. Moving forward, let me plug in my computer so it doesn't die. And there we are. Meanwhile, the poor man came home and said, "I have just made the acquaintance of a young fellow who smeared my door with paint and said that he would stop in my house to spend the night whenever he was in this village. He is so kind-hearted. How sorry he was for my brother, how he wanted to help my sister-in-law." His wife and son listened in silence, but his adopted daughter said to him, "My father, didn't you make a mistake? Perhaps the same robbers who killed my uncle have now discovered that their gold is missing and are trying to find us. Now they may come and rob us, and you won't escape death." The peasant was frightened. "That is quite possible. After all, I never saw the man before. What a misfortune! What shall I do? What shall we do?" His daughter said, "Take some paint and smear the same signs on all the doors in the neighborhood." "Screw you, Facebook phone. I said start." There we go, back to it. Stop lagging. It's not listening to me, it's lagging again. Darn you, Facebook phone. Do I have to turn off my home? It might be better to use the satellite than the in-house internet. It's so ridiculous lately. Anyway, take some paint and smear the same signs on all the doors in the neighborhood. The peasant did this. When the robbers came, they could not find anything. They went back and thrashed their scout for not having made the signs proper. Finally, they decided that they had been outwitted by a clever person, and after a while prepared 7 barrels. They put a robber in each of them except one that they filled with oil. The former scout took these barrels straight to the poor brother's house. He arrived at sunset and asked whether he could stay overnight. The poor brother welcomed him as a friend. The daughter went to the yard and began to inspect the barrels. She opened one and found oil. She tried to open another, but could not. She put her ear to it and heard someone stirring and breathing inside. "Ah," she thought, "that's an evil ruse." She came into the house and said, "Father, we must treat our guest." "Do it. Do it. My internet sucks. My internet really, really sucks." Back to it. I swear, Facebook. The daughter made a fire in the stove, and while cooking supper, she boiled water and poured it into the barrels, thus scalding the 6 robbers to death. Her father and his guest ate supper, and the daughter sat in the back room waiting to see what would happen next. When the hosts went to bed, the guest went out into the yard and whistled. No one answered. He approached the barrels, and steam came out of them. The robber guessed what had happened, harnessed his horses, and left with the barrels. You agree, Heather, don't you? You do agree. My internet is being terrible, absolutely terrible. So, yeah, that kind of sucks, doesn't it? Am I still streaming? Am I no longer streaming on Twitch? Oh, for crying out loud. I'm just so frustrated right now. The daughter closed the door, went to rouse her family, and told them what she had done. Her father said, "Well, little daughter, you have saved our lives. Now be my son's lawful wife." There was a gay feast and a wedding. The young bride kept telling her father that he should sell his old house and buy a new one, for she was very much afraid of the robbers, who might return sooner or later. And her fears came true. After some time, the same robbers who had come with the barrels disguised himself as an officer. Facebook, came to the peasants, disguised himself as an officer, came to the peasant's house, and asked whether he could spend the night. He was admitted. No one guessed anything, but the young bride recognized him and said, "Father, this is the same robber who came before." "No, my daughter, it is not." She did not answer, but when bedtime came, she put a sharp axe beside her, and stayed awake all night watching. In the middle of the night, the pretended officer rose, took his saber, and was about to cut off her husband's head. She did not lose her presence of mind, but swung her axe and cut off his right hand. Then she swung again and cut off his head. Her father now realized that his daughter was really very wise. He followed her advice, sold his old house, and bought himself a hostelry. He moved to his new residence and began to prosper and increase his trade. His neighbors, the same who had given him money and later sued him in court, stopped at his hostelry. "Hey, how do you happen to be here?" "This is my house. I bought it recently." "It's a magnificent house. Apparently you are in money. Why don't you pay your debts?" The host bowed and said, "Thank God, the Lord has been good to me. I found a treasure, and I am ready to pay you even threefold." "Very well, brother. Let us now celebrate the housewarming." "You are welcome." So they had a good time. I have Cox internet, those cocks. And near the house there was a beautiful garden. "May we look at your garden?" "With pleasure, gentlemen. I will accompany you." They walked and walked in the garden, and in a remote corner found a tub full of ashes. When the host saw it, he gasped, "Gentlemen, this is the same tub that my wife sold. Let us see whether the money is not in the ashes." They shook the tub and found the money. Then the neighbors believed that the peasant had told them the truth. "Let us examine the trees in the woods," they said. "The raven who snatched the cap must have built a nest in it." They walked and walked, saw a nest, pulled it down with hooks, and there was the cap. They threw out the nest and found the money. The host paid his debts to his neighbors and began to live in prosperity and happiness. Nicholas has just made an excellent point, everyone. That's the end of the Russian fairy tale, by the way. But Nicholas has made an excellent point. The government is stalling your internet because people through bedtime stories, and they want us all to be mindless robots. Can we have a conspiracy theory hour, by the way? Perhaps we can, Nikolai. Perhaps we can. But until then, I have one more story for you this evening. Yes, I do. I have one more, and this one is of my own design, my own written story. You've heard a few of them before, and now you get to hear another. How fantastic is that? Lucky you. Lucky you. So, this story, and then we will go to bed. Oh, what the hell? Okay, no, I don't want to put you in full screen, darn you. Okay, anyway, it's called Curses. I feel like I'm cursed right now. Perhaps I am. Anyway, this is the original story. I'm so done tonight. I am so done tonight. But I have one more story for you as promised. So here we go. Curses. The guests, few of them though there were, stared in amazement at the scene before them. Beautiful and terrifying, the tropical cliff face was rocky and rough. Even if they had been able to bring chairs up here, they wouldn't have been able to sit comfortably, but that didn't matter. Mesmerizing was the view of 1,000 miles of dense forest, complemented by the crystal lake several hundred feet below. Who would think to get married here? The edge of a cliff. One step in the wrong direction and you could easily plummet to your death. "Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold through sickness and in health as long as you both shall live?" "I do." "And do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold through sickness and in health as long as you both shall live?" She paused. It wasn't on purpose. She didn't even feel the sneeze coming on, but there it was. It just happened. Right into the groom's mouth. Even if he wasn't mildly germophobic, his response, one of horror and shock, was one to be expected of anyone, and it was followed immediately by the groom slapping at his own face, wiping at the invisible bacterial assailants, and taking a cautionary step back. His foot reached for something that was not there, but before he could fall, she thrust her hand out to catch her almost husband. Her fingers clasped tightly upon the first hold they could find, his bow tie. Usually bow ties aren't actually tied, it's sort of a lost art, but Geoffrey wanted to do it right for their wedding, so he learned the knot. At first she had a decent hold on the bow tie. He released a sigh of relief and gave the briefest of smiles before the knot came undone. The bow tie slipped from his neck, and he slipped from the cliff. That was Geoffrey. Curses are real. What many people don't realize, though, is that a curse is not something that can be placed or removed. It is simply a neon sign on your life, flashing baggage from the day you're born to the day you die. Marie, for example, was cursed to a very grim fate. Every romantic relationship she entered would end in her killing her partner. Granted, it was never on purpose that she did so, but still, it was kind of inconvenient for someone so lonely, and it was kind of unfortunate for the men in the life of someone so surprisingly hopeful. You know about Geoffrey. We'll skip Cliff. No, the irony of that name did not escape Marie, and we'll also skip Alex, Drew, and Eric. We will, however, pick up with Anthony. Anthony's curse was a little different than Marie's. Oh, sorry, you didn't know? Yes, everyone is cursed, even you. Anyway, back to the story. Anthony was cursed with a long life. A very long life. A very, very long life. You see, Anthony was not allowed to die. Sure, one day his life would end, and he knew exactly when that would be, but it wasn't any time soon. It was deemed by powers unknown to man that Anthony would be allowed to die when he learned to love something more than himself. And anyone who ever knew Anthony knew that was not something likely to happen in this lifetime. Many people share the same curse. Cursed to fall in love with the wrong person, cursed to pursue but never achieve a lifetime goal, cursed to be alone. Marie's curse, however, was a rare one that proved to be fatal 100% of the time, and not to her. The time it took for each of Marie's romantic partners to die, however, was not set in stone. It was more fluid. Her first relationship, for example, was in high school. Puppy love though it was still just as real as a puppy. New, cute, loyal, and regretfully real. She was driving when it happened. She had just gotten her license and picked him up so they could go to a movie and celebrate. She looked over at her date for the briefest of moments while cruising down the road and didn't see the oncoming truck driver asleep at the wheel. Her boyfriend was killed on impact, and she escaped with a few cracked ribs, a broken leg, and some scrapes. It was several years and a change of scenery before she decided to try dating again. Small towns will do that when catastrophic accidents occur. At home, eyes lingered in petrified nostalgia, but away at college, she could exchange knowing eyes for admiring ones. It was in her sophomore year that her second victim fell prey to love at first sight. Marie had been in the center of the street when she caught a glimpse of a beautiful boy about to enter the crosswalk. Their eyes met, and fire danced with lightning while an icy wind pierced the silence of their hearts. Their love truly was at first sight, but sadly, it was to go no further. For all the times Marie had complained about the bus drivers on campus, she had never believed one would be careless enough to run her down, and she was technically right. The beauty of the boy lived on in his final heroic act. Sorry, beautiful boy. And that is the end of Curses. I have not finished that story. It was part of a creative writing group I've recently joined. And, it's a fun thing to do. So anyway, I have not finished that story. I figure it might become something longer. If you liked it and thought it should be something longer, please comment below or to the side or wherever the comments are. Either way, thank you everyone for being here. I do appreciate you. This swig is for you for being so patient with me and my stupid internet. Thank you, Heather. I'm glad you like it so far. I am your host. Yes. Oh, you still see me, Mr. Green 619. I'm still. Oh, good. It is still going. Oh, my. I was so worried for a moment. But I don't know how I'm going to stop streaming because I can't see the stop streaming button. For some reason, it has escaped. It's disappeared. Maybe this will do it. Yes, I do have an end stream button. I found it. All right, good. I'm glad it didn't end. Thank you, Mr. Green 619. It's so good that you're here. Thank you, Shay, for commenting. Thank you, Mum, for commenting. Thank you, everyone, for commenting. Thank you, Heather and Nick. I was happy to be patient with your internet. Have a good night. Yes, thank you so much for being patient, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, one more time, join the Facebook Storytime group if you have not already. Join like this video on YouTube and subscribe to my page BeepCorny1 if you have not already. And if you would like, join my Twitch, so subscribe or whatever the button is. Follow my Twitch handle, Brett Doesn't Game. Anyway, so glad to have seen all of you tonight. So glad you were able to join in, and so glad to keep doing this for you. Until next time, I bid you adieu. Have a wonderful evening. Happy Sunday to you. Have a great Sunday, and I will see you tomorrow night. Yes, I do want to end the stream.